What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today I'm excited to show off my V Premium Thavas deck profile that I took to Bro 2023 this spring that we had. I'll cover a little bit of the metagame to expect and also some of the updated changes that we had from the prior Bro of last year and some new cards that really make an impact for the Thavas deck that actually make it competitively viable. So let's get right into it. I'm also a METAFY coach that has helped numerous players get their results in tops. I actually help with the standard, V Premium, and Premium formats, and I help you prepare for tournament preparation as well, so that way you get your results that you're looking for and helping out with your goal. I just want to help the community grow, and feel free to book a session with me. And also to help you out more, I also just came out with the book How to Win Cardfight Tournaments, Break Through Your Mental Barrier, and Topping Trading Card Game Tournaments. And so it's available for Kindle, paperback, and also the audiobook will be coming out soon. And it's the #1 new release as well. So I'm excited for you guys to see the content and value from it too and your results. So real quickly with the mindset, with the metagame expected, we're going to see like Bermuda Triangle. We got the Steam Maidens still running around. We got some like Gold Paladins like Virgoed or Bluish Flame, some things that we saw at Worlds and a couple other decks too. And so really just taking Thavas was still a meta call in my book too, because it got a little bit of more support that can help actually get a chance into top 8 as well. And so that's how I felt. And that's why I really wanted to take the deck as well, because I felt like it could perform really well. I participated in AO and NA, and NA I performed the best. I actually went 6-2. Unfortunately, tiebreakers are a thing, so I didn't make it into top 8, but it is what it is. But I was pretty happy with the consistency and also just the sheer finishing power that it still has, and also has added to the new cards that we got in the past year. And so getting right into the card choices themselves, as we can see, we are playing 3 Lambros and then the 4 Thavas. But the one thing that I did add was a 5th grade 3 that we can ride, and that is the Thundering Ripple Genovius. And so what this card does is that 2 things. It's an axe skill. You can Soul Blast 1, check the top 5, and call that card onto the Rigard Circle. So it gives you resources to work with, which you can get Pursuit Assaults, Coral Assaults, just phenomenal cards to really apply that pressure that turn. That second skill is that when it attacks, and if you don't have any stand units in the front row, you can Counter Blast 1 and stand one of your units. But if you have 4 more damage, you stand all of your rear guards. And then of course, if you have the grade 2 Ripple, it would give power, but we don't. So really what this card does is a powerful finishing turn. So what ends up happening, essentially, when you first do your grade 3 Thavas turn, you're going to do the Pseudo Strides go into Lambros, and then you ride back to Thavas at the end of the first grade 3 turn. So you have 2 Excel circles, you've applied pressure, so more than likely your opponent's at 4 to 5 damage if you kept the tempo off too. And then they're also gonna put their aggression back to you. And essentially by the time it is your turn, now you are at 4 damage, where you ride Genovius from hand. You'll get the 3rd Excel circle, and because Genovius can restand everything, so now you have 3 Excel circles and 2 normal front row circles that can attack and restand, which means 5 times 2 is 10 attacks, and then your Vanguard, which makes 11 attacks. And if you don't have, let's say for example, the 3rd Excel circle, it's still 9 attacks. Like, it's ridiculous. Nobody's really going to survive that, especially if you're able to hit certain numbers. And it's V Premium, so you have no fear of an over trigger, and it's really just the defensive triggers that they do hit, and they have a decent hand size to be able to guard with 1 card per attack at that point. But you have some key cards that really help finish the deal, and you got cards like Pursuit Assault, which I should just highlight at this point, that scale with the Excel circles. And so Pursuit Assault gets 5k for each additional circle that you have. So him being on the Excel circle and three of them existing is plus 20k, so he's automatically 29k base, and that doesn't include any triggers or any other power-ups that you may include in. It's just a phenomenal card. So that's why I recommend playing 4 Pursuit Assaults. It works well with Genovius too, but ideally you're gonna use it to fulfill the condition for Thavas, so that way you can use your Lambros. And you want to play 3 Lambros because you need to make sure that you're able to pseudo stride every single turn, especially if you don't have the Genovius just yet, or it doesn't make sense to go into Genovius. One of the things that I wanted to do is to stay as low damage as possible and only go really to 4 to 5 damage if I had to, and it made sense for a potential finishing turn, or just like I couldn't guard everything, because otherwise at that point I would lose like resources to work with. So having 3 Lambros is enough in my opinion. If you have 4, I think it gets cluttered. Do keep in mind though that if you ride Genovius, this card in your hand is still a grade 4. It doesn't have the minus grade 1 because you no longer have a Thavas Vanguard, so be mindful of that. But if it's already on the field, then it all works out. So you can make basically a 23k column with an 8k booster because it is 15k base, so that helps in making a decent column too. But ideally you want to recycle him with other cards too. And another staple in the grade 2s is Coral Assault, and Coral Assault's another beater. When it sees 4 or more other units, it gets plus 15, so it's 24k base. On the XL2 circle, it'll be 29, so that's something that we can rely on, especially restanding on the Lambros column, because Lambros restands a column. This is a nice card to restand and really get the maximum benefit, because more than likely that's like your last rearguard column that's still standing, and so it'll get a chance to actually see the power and then restood by Lambros and see the power again, so you can really get more bang for your buck. And at the end of the turn, if you have 4 more attacks, it goes into Soul and you draw a card. So it helps keep the advantage of making sure you have enough Soul or Pursuit Assault and any other cards that may take Soul, which this adds into Terrific Coil and also Adelaide. So there's a couple things to keep in mind, and as you notice, I'm not playing any Dennis. I played it in Premium, especially for Worlds. I realized that Dennis, there is not really much worthness in Dennis right now in this metagame, because the metagame is a lot quicker and it's a lot more aggressive. So cards like Terrific Coil help with more aggression, even on the grade 2 turn or your first grade 3 turn, and it doesn't require a Counterblast to restand. It just has to attack the first battle and Soul Blast, and boom, it stands. And furthermore, it gets an additional 5k if it just restood by a card ability. It could be by its own skill, which immediately gets the benefit, or a Lambros restand. Doesn't matter. So you have a 14k beater, but on the XL2 circle, it's 19k. So you're demanding 10k shield per attack for this guy too. And then if you put this on a regular rearguard circle, this can attack for 14k and then boost it by 8k. The next attack, it'll make 22k. So it makes that magic number against Protect and Excel clans too. And also pairing it up with Adelaide, it's just more attacks as well if you do have the extra Counterblast to work with. Remember, Lambros needs 1. Adelaide's going to need the second one. And so at the end of battle, when you're grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, you can Counterblast and stand this, assuming that you've rested this card and another card to gain the red tech skill. So this gives you another attack. This also helps you fulfill the condition for Thavas, and that's why I wanted to keep Adelaide for the most part, because it helps with the consistency of going into Lambros. This deck will lose if it cannot do the Lambros turn. I just want to emphasize that. It is so important. That's the way that it bricks. It's just the problems that Thavas has always had since V-Series started with Thavas, essentially. The second skill is that it gets plus 5k each time it's stood by an ability, and it's not once per turn. So essentially, once it rests itself, you do the Lambros, restand your board, this will get the plus 5 immediately. Then when this actually stands by itself, it gets another plus 5k on top of that. So it'll get plus 10k in total, and if this is on the XL2 circle, it's an additional 5, so 15 plus 9 makes 24. So you can make sure that this card will hit over a trigger as well. So that's where I typically put Adelaide on an XL2 circle if possible, while the other cards like Pursuit Assault and Coral Assault can really hit for themselves, and then later on with more XL circles they really hit harder essentially. But you just want to make sure your attacks actually do hit over a trigger or two, and Adelaide with that positioning matters the most as well. Just be mindful with Terrific Coil too with the Soul, because you can get a little bit greedy with Narissa and Pursuit Assault, and then Lambros also is a Soul Blast technically. You want to be careful where you don't Soul Blast your Thavas. You could have a Coral Assault go into Soul if you have no Soul before you retire your Lambros Vanguard to re-red into a grade 2, which is the Coral Assault. But in V Premium, it just doesn't really make sense, and so you want to make sure that you stay at grade 3, so you have that higher K base. And if you really need to, you can ride back up at that point, worst case scenario, but just be mindful of the Soul usage. So I just wanted to point that out, because I've ran into that with my playtesting before. And so with Narissa, it's such an important card, so we play it for, because one, you can rest it as part of the cost, but if you already have enough cards that can rest, you can Soul Blast one and plus 10k this unit until the end of the turn. It is not once per turn, so you have extra resters. You can utilize Narissa to become 18k, 28, 38, and then it can be also a beater on the XL2 circle. So 8 plus 5 on the XL circle is 13, and then any power up of multiples of 10 just make it like 23 and 33. So it's really solid beater as well. And it goes into soul if you have 4 more rested rearguards too, so that way you can draw a card too and really keep up the advantage and dig deeper into your next follow-up cards needed for the next turn. So that's why I play 4 still. And then we have 4 Nikki. So this is one of the things that Nikki is brought up with Dennis and Thavas, because when you read it as Vanguard, you can check the top 7 for either of those and add it to your hand for free. You do miss out on the Dennis, but as I played Thavas in Premium, I realized that I didn't really care about Dennis anyway. And it is a +1 if you do miss out on that, but really the most important thing is that you have enough resters and you get your grade 3 Thavas by your grade 3 turn as well. So having the 4 Nikkis is still vital. And I think even in V Premium, it's more important because of its second skill too. You can rest this unit to return a normal unit to the bottom of the deck and actually soul charge 1. The soul charge in the bottom of the deck comes up more in the V Premium because you want to recycle your Lambroses so that you're still doing that every single turn until you win or you go into Genovias. You could also return key pieces like Pursuit Assault, Coral Assault, Narissa, and so on, but you also are fueling Soul, so that when you can use it for Terrific Coil, because Terrific Coil is also now in the build, so it fights over with Pursuit Assault and Narissa using the Soul as well. So just be mindful of that. So that's why I feel like Nikki has become even more important as well in this build, and I play 4. So the next ratios are the tech choices, or more like the card that you can change around. So 2 Baragios, 2 Penguin Soldier, and 1 Wheel Assault. So in my prior build, I used to play the 2-2-2 ratio, and I took out 1 Wheel Assault to make room for the Genovias. Something had to come out essentially. So Wheel Assault, just like Genovias, for the most part, is a win more type of card. This doesn't help you rest anything. This doesn't help build a board to set up your turn to make you effective. This is like, if everything's already going right in your turn, this is going to make it even more better. You'll get to the 6, 7, 8 attack, depending on how many Excel circles, depending on how many restanders you have. It can get nutty. And really, you just need to see 1. And really, the ideal position for this guy is behind the Vanguard. When you're attacking with all your other rear guards, your Vanguard is typically the last attack before it does the restanding part. So then that way you can also see if the power-up that you restored the column is worth splitting up that column to promote another attack. And you have to see if your opponent's guarding or taking the Vanguard attack. So that's why the timing works really well when this boosts the Vanguard, and it gives you the most flexibility too. Ideally, you can swap boosters such as like Baragios and Narissa, like a beefed up one. So that's why you can have an extra attack that way without like screwing the numbers in that sense too. So Baragios, like I mentioned, is a 13k attacker, and we have 4 more rested rear guards. It's also a booster, so that's always helpful. You can put this behind a Coral Assault 9 times out of 10. And then it can be attacker on its own. So it's just very flexible card. But the other important thing is the consistency, that it checks the top 5 for a grade 3. It's good for Thavas copies. You can grab a Genovia, so as you're maybe doing your grade 3 turn, you may not need a Thavas, but you can also make an effort to find a Genovias already early on to prep for the next turn too. If you're going second, this card is even more important to find a grade 3 heal Guardian so you can survive. Some matchups you need at least 1 or 2 grade 3 heal Guardians to really stay at low damage and survive and make a comeback and get the tempo going in your favor too. So that's why this card's even more important. So 4 Nikki, 2 Baragios makes the consistency go up. And then lastly, we have the Penguin Soldier. So it's another rester. It also gives any unit in the same column +5. It can choose itself or another copy, either way. It's very flexible. And then also, when your other unit attacks, and if it's the 4th battle of that turn, you can retire this unit and countercharge. So this is how you can make sure you have enough counterblast turn by turn moving forward. You really just need maybe 1 to pop off, if not at all, in a game too. So it's just nice having 2 copies. Also, you can get away with 1 counterblast using it with Lambros and Adelaide. So for example, when Lambros attacks, you can use the counterblast that you have, and then this can retire itself to countercharge immediately. And then at the end of the battle for Lambros' attack, you can use Adelaide's counterblast skill now to restand. And so you're using 1 counterblast to really do 2 counterblasts, if that makes sense. So it's a really nice card, and it helps with the consistency of resting too. We have the starter. So I wanted more crit pressure. This is something that Jose Nieves had mentioned to me last year too, just having more aggression with the crit sentinel. It's a 9th crit. It's also a 1 card drop, especially if you're going against decks that multi-attack, such as like Steam Maiden 2 or the Mare or even Gurguit. Sometimes it's a lot easier to drop 1 card versus 2 cards or 3 cards, right? So super impactful. And then you got the grade 3 heals, just like I mentioned, because you need them to survive. And then if you do not have Thavas yet and you have one, make sure you use it so that way you can also get the benefit of guarding with it, but also don't have to ride with, because if you have this card and you don't have Thavas, you cannot G assist. It's better to have to G assist and ride the Thavas and get a DXL2 to help recuperate some advantage there, and maybe build some advantage with Pursuit Assault and etc. But if you don't use this immediately, you cannot G assist and then you're screwed. So I just wanted to emphasize that at least too. And so that's really the deck profile. I really liked how the deck performed. I played a lot of different matchups. So I played against Steam Maidens. Half of them I won, half of them I lost. Sadly, it felt like if they went first, it was really an uphill battle. I know one game I won is because that I didn't attack when I rode to grade 1, and they were gonna ride to grade 2 next turn, and they had 2 Entradas and they couldn't use them. And it actually like hold them back. So I think there was like a meme on Twitter too. It's like Entrada is like a +4 draw Uno card essentially in Vanguard. It's kind of funny, but the deck is it's an uphill battle, I'll say that. And then I think I had a mare. Yeah, I had a mare. That was a really close one. Because of the soul usage, I ended up having to ride down back to grade 2 with a Coral Assault because I used all my soul to hopefully push, but it wasn't enough. And then I think that bit me in the butt because I was able to survive the following turn. And then at that point, if I was on grade 3, it would have been a better turn at that point and go into Lambros. But I was stuck at grade 2 and I couldn't do much after that point. So kudos to that player too. Had a fun time. And also, I played a lot of Bermuda Triangle. I played against Anj. I played against Plum, the one that gives like multiple gifts. And then I played another Bermuda type of build, and I couldn't remember what it was, but like it was pretty much all flavors that were competitively viable for that clan. And I played a few other random decks too. I played Angel Feather too, so I went against Nocio, so that was interesting too. And that was a close one too as well. And so I just want to say that this deck is really good too. It has a decent matchup against most of the meta. It's going to have an uphill battle with the top decks, and especially with Steam Maiden, to be quite frank. And so it's just like, just be on the lookout for those types of matchups. Do your best if you decide to play Thavas for the next event too. We don't know if the new ban list is going to hit V Premium stuff or change things up. But Thavas did get a buff with Genovius and really just changing a couple things and really still having some kind of like winning image that you can still win and push through. So I'm very glad that I played. It was a blast too. Vision actually did a good job too, hosting with Bushiroad staff too, so kudos to you guys too. And for future events, I'm looking forward to as well for standard and premium later this year as well. If you haven't heard yet, I actually just published my first book, How to Win Cardfight Tournaments, Break Through Your Mental Barrier, and Top in Trading Card Game Tournaments. And so I'm very excited. It's on Amazon right now, so you can click on the description below for the Amazon links. There's an ebook and also a paperback. A couple weeks later, the audiobook will come out too. I narrated myself as well. And what's really cool, I'm promoting the ebook for the first week for 99 cents USD, and it's also available across the world too, in Japan, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Europe, you name it, right? And so as long as you have access to Amazon Marketplace, you can have it. So the point of the book is to help out fellow card fighters. So if you want to improve as a player, definitely recommend it. You know, let me know if you got a copy too. I'd love to hear that too. And also leave a book review. It does help a lot too as well. And if you want to support the channel even further, you can use the affiliate links like 50 Card Shop, TCG Player, Trading Card Mint down in the description below as well too. And if you want to have more one-on-one sessions and METAFY coaching, feel free to book a session too. Happy to help out where I can too with the community as well. And so until the next one, amigos.